All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Akidu Bandara. I'm an undergraduate from NSBM Green University, following Bachelor of Business, Banking and Finance, and Financial Risk Management, dual major degree offered by Victoria University, Australia. I will be your host for WebCast 3.0, in which we'll be touching on one of the most intriguing and timely topics for young accounting professionals like yourselves, striving towards excellence in modern accounting. Our speaker for the day is none other than Mariam Riza. For those of you who may not have heard of her, Mariam Riza is an award-winning strategist, consultant, and international speaker on human capital engagement. She's the CEO of Wattleshire Pty Limited, Australia, in which her work spans within a broader area from accountancy, member education, to HR technology in workforce engagement. Also, she works as a senior manager at Brotherhood St. Lawrence, one of the largest community organizations in Australia. Moving on to her contribution in the area of professional accounting education, she lectures in the areas of ethics, governance, sustainability for various academic and professional programs, such as Victoria University Australia, CP Australia, and ACCA. As you've all heard, her profile is quite interesting and indeed a motivation to every one of us. So Mariam, let me conclude your profile by adding a few more. Mariam was awarded ACCA Regional Advocate of the Year by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and ANZ, and was listed under the 50 most influential women on LinkedIn, and was also awarded the Accounts Daily MIOB 30 Under 30 Award for Business Advisory. Basically, all you need to know is that she's truly a powerhouse of an individual with extensive knowledge of the corporate world. So this webinar will be extremely useful and educational for all of you to build your career as competent professionals in the new era. Mariam, we warmly welcome you to our webinar. It is truly an honor to have you with us today. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome our lovely audience. Joining with us on Zoom, we have the final year and third year undergraduates following Victoria University and NSBM UGC approved degree programs. At the same time, we have a wider audience joining with us from Facebook Live and YouTube. So if anyone joining with us on Zoom have friends outside NSBM who would like to join the webinar, they can do it through Facebook Live. And I think the president of SCAF, Mr. Ranush, will be sharing the link with you guys in the general chat for this meeting. And also, if any of your friends are missing the webinar, they need not worry, as the recording will be uploaded to the department YouTube channel. A very warm welcome to all of you. We believe you'll get the most out of today's discussion. So without further ado, Mariam, let's get straight into the most awaited part of the session, right?
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, Akindo. Really. Akindo and I were having a chat offline before you guys came online. And so we were sort of getting to know each other. And I'm really even more interested in speaking today. I'm really interested to know your story as well, Akindo, because you're just the example, the epitome of, a young professional that's entering the market, that's doing a double degree and, challenging COVID, challenging everything in your life. So really excited to hear your story as well. And I do want to thank NSBM Green and also Samadhi for the invitation, really incredible. And also the team for all of the social media content, the organization, all of that as well. So really excited to be here. I'm one who's honored here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. Well, I would first like to start by asking you how you developed your career as a professional in the field of accounting. Starting all the way from how you got interested in the field of accounting, and the steps you took to get to where you are as a professional now.
That's a really good question, Akindo, and it's sort of like taking me way back. I'm kidding. I'm not that I'm not that old, but it's an interesting journey, and I'm really happy that we get to share this story with you, because what's interesting is this webinar is about being an accountant, is about accountancy, is about business and finance, but surprisingly, fundamentally when we look at accountancy, it's about business management. It's about how do you structure organizations better? How do you understand the financial acumen mixed and mingling with the management acumen to then drive organizations better? And so in my story, when I present this to all of you, I want you to think about how can you apply this story to all of your own future growth and your own future trajectory for you then to take learnings away from it. My story will not be your story. And I don't, at any means, I cannot even imagine what it is like to be young, to be in a COVID world, to have to do with all the challenges that you face today. So I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm just saying this is my story. I took an interesting path. You will take your own interesting path as well and carve out your journey as well. So I started off in accountancy. Surprisingly, I was born in Sri Lanka in Colombo, but because my parents were expats, we used to do quite a little bit of traveling overseas. So sadly, I had to pick up Sinhalese. It's not perfect, but it's great. I can function, which is good. So it's always been an interesting challenge. And then when I was about 15, I moved to Singapore to start my accountancy. Now this is interesting because I did it while I did my London O-levels and A-levels, and then so I started off my accountancy, my ACCA, after I finished off my O-levels and in between O-levels and A-levels. Much like a lot of you in Sri Lanka who, we want to get things done really fast. And I was one of those really, I was one of those kids who were like, oh, I have to do it fast. I'd run, finish. And so I was very ambitious. I was one of those kids who sit right in front in class, don't talk to anybody, like, oh, book. And I was very, very shy. I was very, I didn't engage that well. But what happened was I did finish ACCA by the time I was 20. I finished a bachelor's in, applied accounting. And then I started off as a fresh intern, as an internal auditor in a telecommunications company in Sri Lanka. And so I was like, okay, very bookish, very nerdy. We're like, oh, don't talk to me. And then we had a fraud in the organization. And so what was interesting is when it's an internal audit and you're having a fraud in an organization, you have to work with people in your organization to get information, to get access to documentation that they perhaps are saying, oh, you don't trust me, or, why are you questioning me? Do you question my loyalty to the company? They're not criminals. It was just that the way we were asking the questions itself were abrasive. Then I was like, oh, there must be a different way of doing this. My training was regimented, very scriptive, very compliance driven as an accountant. That's what I had picked up. It's not that the education was like that, but that's the way I had picked that up. So I was like, oh, but then I realized there's a different angle to doing that. And then in touching the people behind the story and carrying them along the journey, I was able to assist with that fraud investigation. And then I realized maybe there's a different part to this. And then I started exploring organizational psychology. And so for my master's, what I topped up with was in organizational psychology. And the reason behind that is all of this has stories. Why? Is because your accountancy degree is really important to understand how to understand business, but you enhance it by multidisciplinary skills elsewhere, as an organizational psychologist or HR, or as Akindo is doing, the banking and finance as well. So that gives you a blended approach to have a 2-track or 3-track understanding of how could you bring different angles to the problem that you have in the organization. So after doing that, I moved to Australia, and I'm currently in Australia, and we can talk about that as well as we go along, Akindo.
All right. So from what I understood, when you were talking about how you were qualified as a professional accountant, but you also did things that basically synergized and added to your knowledge in terms of psychology and stuff, right? Because I think now that you're saying this as well, it's very important to be a master of one, but also be a jack of all trades in a way, right? To manage things better. Mariam, what do you think about accounting digitalization taking place? In a sense, what sort of transition has happened in the skills of a modern accounting professional? Like I would say, I'd say 30 years back, and the required skill set of an accountant in the modern era, especially with the development of ICT and artificial intelligence coming into play. How do you think do you think there's a difference between the skill set required in the past and now?
That's an interesting question, Akindo. And I think with a lot of the young graduates and the young undergraduates that are coming on, I mean, all of you're not looking at it from a point of fear. You're just going on it and like, there is a problem, there is something that I need to learn. Let's go head on and try to learn that. So that's good. Yeah. What we do find is with the experienced individuals, sometimes there's a little bit of apprehension around some of the digital skills. But when we look at digital, and you already alluded to this as well, 30 years ago, or say 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, what was technology is now what we consider a given or a norm. So computers were something new, or Excel was something new for different people at different times. So what's currently new for this generation, or what we're entering into the workplace, is intelligent automation, RPA, machine learning, blockchain. These are all the catchwords. But fundamentally, I think what's interesting is technology has made it easier to do the work that we do. So when I came into accounting or auditing, when I was a young auditor, it was auditing using technology, using, or instead of running manual books and reports, you could run it on a system. So it's interesting when we use that. So that's again another reason why technology is coming. So things like intelligent automation, robotic process automation, blockchain, cloud-based accounting systems itself. So no longer is your accounting system sitting on your desktop, it's now on a cloud-based, meaning you could work wherever you are.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, what I want to explore with you is, it doesn't matter what the technology is today. It is just a tool or an extension for you to learn, for you to keep moving. So I don't want you to say, oh, there's blockchain here, I'm going to now spend eternity studying that tool or that concept or the way you do things. It is just little badges that you add along, that you wear to move on to the next stage. Because it's a bit like how when we talk about coding, everybody's like, oh, learn coding, and then you start learning the most relevant language, and in a few years' time, it's irrelevant as well.
Yeah.
So it's about that mindset, that change mindset, where you take on whatever the technology is at play, you will learn whatever is required for your job at the time and the job for the next 5 years, but then you don't think too much about it, because this is all part of the augmenting or what becomes a given in your repertoire of skills going forward. So I think that's the way we should, as accountants as well, approach digitization, that yes, things are digitizing along us, but that just makes it easier to do the work we do. And so if you go in at it saying, yeah, it's just part of the job, we've got to learn it. It's a bit like a new accounting standard. When an accounting standard comes, we don't go, oh, accounting standard. We're like, oh, cool. Okay, well, that's done. Let's learn it. Let's spend a few months learning it. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Throw it over your shoulder. You're done. So I think I can parrot about the different types of technologies, but I want to leave all of you with the understanding that whatever comes your way, learn it to the extent that you need. You don't have to, and Akintu said this correctly, master of some, jack of all trades. So I'm going to mirror what Akintu just said just now, is depth. Depth, understand the depth of the technology piece that you need for the role that you're doing currently and also for the next 5 years, but also breadth. So have a snapshot of what's going on in the market. What's the general trajectory of what you need, but don't worry about needing to know every single thing all the time, because it's just about movement, traction, agility, to be able to pick up different opportunities as you go along.
Flexibility and adaptability also, right? Yeah.
What do you think, Akindu? What do you think? How do you feel like as a very young enterprising professional, do you feel like you need to learn everything? Because I know how it is. You're getting thrown with so many new words, so many new things. How do you compartmentalize your learning to be as effective to face the challenges as a professional?
To be honest with you, I want to get into the music industry. I want to become a musician in the future. And I'm studying financial risk management and banking because I'm also studying my music and honing my skills there. But also I want to get into the business side of things as well. And I feel like learning something like financial risk management can give me a good understanding about how finance works because again, at the end of the day, it's still an industry, right? So just as you said, I don't think that we need to constrict ourselves to one thing. It's good to have knowledge from different areas of different aspects of education, but also, you need to be well equipped and have the knowledge and experience in what you do, but also have the little thing that synergizes with it, and also have the flexibility to adapt to change.
Very true, very true. And I think one thing you really said, I'm so excited about your music, that you're studying music, is Akindu, you're an example, and all of you as well who's listening in. Akindu is a classic example of how your brain works in different sense. So when you're going to see a business problem in front of you, he's going to take a very creative approach to it, because his mind thinks in several different shapes and forms. He thinks musically, he thinks creatively, but that doesn't mean creative accounting, like cooking the books, but he approaches it with a different mindset, which is why breadth and depth is important.
Mario, how important do you think professional qualifications are for today's accountants in the global context? Because also I would like to touch on the academic side as well, because sometimes when my colleagues, I'm pretty sure, can relate to this, when we get stressed with assignments or exams, we tend to think, is this really worth it? Will it apply in the corporate world? What's your take on this? What's your opinion on this?
It's a very, very interesting one, because remember, the reason why I gave you a bit of background of who I was is because I myself have had to go through that the growth, that personal growth itself. I was sort of like sitting in the front, not talking to people, and I had to learn. And in order to get ahead, I had to engage with people. I had to build networks. I had to build relationships, because paper books, rote learning, and paper qualifications only get you so far. And then it is then about for you to get on the ground and network and meet the right people, rub shoulders with the right people to be able to build linkages and connections as well. So I think to answer your question back again, professional qualifications and qualifications in general, and as you know, you probably know this more than anybody else, but qualifications are broken into traditionally academic qualifications, which is your degree, like you're doing at the Victoria University, that NSBM Green University provides so well, and also your professional qualifications like your ACCA, your CPA, your CIMA.
Yeah.
All of that is really good is really good to get you in the door. It is good as a fundamental base covering. So effectively, I mean, you come from a financial risk management point of view. So this is effectively, I see qualifications as a risk mitigation strategy. So if anybody comes in and says, oh, you're not qualified, here, I have it. But placing a lot of emphasis on it is perhaps a fallacy and is dangerous. So we're not saying don't do degrees, because it provides the backup risk management, but fundamentally as well, it provides the grounding, the cement. When you're building a house, do you put the roof in? Do you put the windows in to say hi to the neighbors? No, you first put the foundation, you pour the cement, and then you build the windows to say hi. So think of your career like a house. In order to have the windows to say, hi, CEO, I'm awesome, you need to have the foundation, the cement, that then you're able to stand on and be a really good solid house. So what is that cement? Degrees like NSBM Green University, Victoria University, and also your professional qualifications. But building the foundation and saying, oh, I have a good house, nobody's coming to me, it doesn't help either. So this is a good grounding, and then using that, you leverage off of that saying, oh, I have this, I have the learning and the understanding to get you through the door into the first interview or the first job. But then from that point onwards, you're on your own effectively. So I think there is a bit of a balance between using your degree to get in through the door, or even throughout the rest of your career. We have even sometimes when you run for office or CEO or something 15 years later, they'll say, oh, you don't have a place here. Oh, yeah, well, I did have a degree once upon a time. So it does help you throughout the career, but a lot of your success, your professional success, will be dependent on how good you are at your job. And that means continuous CPD. So that means, and again, when I mean CPD, I don't mean the structured. It could be structured, but it also could mean your unstructured learning, like sitting and listening to Akindo on Saturday at lunchtime. Oh my gosh, that is continuous learning effectively. But also networks and partnerships as well that gets you ahead. One last thing as well I want to touch as well, Akindo, if I do have the time, is cultural as well. So different countries react to qualifications differently. So if you are in the Asian continent like Sri Lanka, there's a lot of emphasis placed on qualifications. In fact, Sri Lanka is not so bad because we're pretty cool. We're very liberal. We're very international in the way we approach things. But some countries, the more initials you have, the more you sound important. That's fine as well. There's nothing wrong with whatever you are doing in the country that you're in. Like that saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you're in a country that values qualifications, then by all means, pin it all up, wear all the badges, all of that. But sometimes the Western democracies, some of those countries, they don't place any emphasis on qualifications. But that doesn't mean you don't get qualified either. Remember Akindo's policy, risk management? Yes, this is your risk management strategy to both have qualifications as the basis, but still work around it to build networks and experience to leverage you into the future.
Right. Thank you for sharing that with us. Also, I would like to add to this, Mariam, when picking a professional qualification, how do you, there's so many, right? ACCA, CIMA, just to name a few. How do you pick something that, like, how do I phrase it right? How do you pick something that's related to you and what you do, but also something that sets you apart from, because the job market is definitely competitive, right? So in terms of looking at it in that angle, how do you pick a professional qualification?
That's an interesting question. Before I answer, I'd like to hear your opinion, because the only reason why is because you've picked a really interesting combination. You picked financial risk and management, plus also a double major in banking and finance. So before I answer as well, I'd like to open the floor to you to share your thought process with your colleagues or your peers in terms of what thought process you took in your career project. If you don't mind, I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but you're a classic example of the right thing. So.
Well, to be completely honest with you, like the reason I picked my degree was because, as you said, I wanted a good foundational idea of how risk management works. And I think risk management is important in any industry, whether it's music, accountancy, management, anything, even in life in general, right? So the reason I picked that was because I wanted that foundation and that stability, if that makes any sense. But also, I'm not a strong believer in just academic qualifications. I think that experience and working with people and learning from other people and their experiences is much more valuable than just a formal qualification. That's just my take on it.
I think that's incredible. I love it. I mean, seriously, you really have a really good future ahead of you, and that's exactly, if all of you were listening to Akindu, that's exactly one of the fundamental reasons of why you do what you do, your qualifications. And I think, and see, when you were listening to Akindu, he never said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or I have it all figured out. He's figuring it out as he goes along. And so fundamentally, qualifications as such are like that as well. Previously, it was more, and I understand that this is a conundrum we face, especially in Sri Lanka, where you think there is this societal pressure to make sure you finish your master's and your PhD by your 22. Remember me? I can say that because I'm laughing at myself, right? I finished ACC at 20, so bad me. But fundamentally, that's the fundamental problem, that we feel like there is this onus on us for us to have all the answers correctly laid out, and so therefore, by the time we join the market, we're already a PhD. You actually disadvantage yourself because you wasted your life, you wasted a lot of money figuring things out when you could figure it out across the board. Institutions like NSBM, Green, and even Ranush might probably be able to tell you from SAF as well. Learning is a lifelong journey that you learn as you go and figure out, risk was great, but now I could do risk in the music industry, so therefore I could do a double degree. So it's about shaping and moving the way you go. So fundamentally, qualifications are very important, yes. And as Akindu said, and we were talking about the foundations of the house, but build as you go along based on whatever is interesting to you. So if we were going to give you a list, foundation, what do you feel like you're best interested in when you're getting off of your O-levels or your A-levels? That's your foundation. So are you interested in math or are you interested in music? So it's like Akindu's interested in music. Am I going to tell him, okay, now you have to do an engineering degree and I'm going to force it down you or become a doctor? No, because he thinks like an artistic person. So I say, go on, explore that. And then what you then do is your own personality will come through. You'll decide whatever you feel like. Secondarily, market forces as well. You'll be like, now, okay, so Akindu's running around doing his music. He's doing risk management. Then he suddenly sees COVID's happened. Oh my gosh, everything's gone belly up. I need to pivot now. So he will pivot, but he wouldn't become a doctor suddenly. He will pivot in line with the strengths that he already has. So he'll be like, music and risk. I'm going to then advise musicians on how to build their social media presence. Now, what has happened? He's pivoted into marketing, but still building on his core strengths that he initially spent his education and his undergraduate or his graduate degree in. So that is number one, his personality, his choice. And now what is it? Market forces. Then he starts realizing when he is teaching musicians, he's finding that he knows a lot of, he's working with a lot of international record companies. And so he's like really moving around with MGM and, Parental Advisor, all these big American record companies. And he's like, oh, those are my contacts. Those are my relationships. So now his relationships are driving him to take him a different path. So then he goes to America and he opens up a record label. Now, what did we start with? Personality. Then we went into skills and interest. Then we went into market forces. And now we went into your contacts and your relationships and your networks are driving you somewhere else. So to go back to the question that Akindu placed on me, how important is professional qualifications? Everything. It's relevant. It's relevant because across the board, Akindu is applying what he learned as the foundation of his house, but he's also augmenting that and expanding it into embracing the different aspects of his career. But is he still doing only financial management in banking? No. Look at how far and bright and broad he has spread himself because of that underpinning that is your educational qualification that you had that, puts you forward, but you need to carry yourself thereafter as well.
Thank you, Mariam, for sharing that with us. It was really insightful, actually. Okay, so I think we touched on this a little bit, but I would like to know what are the broader opportunities available in the accounting field? In the sense, generally when I speak to my peers and, people my age and my, I would say, educational level, um, we have this mindset, generally people have this mindset where like, okay, if you're an accountant, you do this 9 to 5 job or work at an audit firm, it's very narrow, right? But you're a clear example that it doesn't need to be the case. I mean, you're a CEO of a company and you have a lot of responsibilities in other areas of your life. How do you expand your opportunities? And, being an accounting professional, like, how do you not, constrict yourself to a box and just explore?
That's an interesting question. Um, I want us to lift the veil on what it means to be an accountant. What are we studying really? I know that we go to school, we study 9 years, we study Basel banking. You probably already know the banking governance, Sarbanes-Oxley standards, all of this. We learn legal law, we learn all of that in school. But when you actually just fundamentally put all of that aside and just look at it, snapshot, what are we really studying? We're really studying how to build things right, how to drive efficiencies in a structure, how to look at a snapshot of structure and through systems thinking, develop a different way of doing business. What are we fundamentally doing? We're learning how to do business better. And because of new age thinking like technology, ethics and sustainability, we're learning to do business better by including people and planet involved. So what's fundamentally happening is when you're an accountant, I don't want you to get shackled with the labels of accountancy. You can only do tax or you can only do audit. What are you actually doing? You're helping business build better business by bringing people together, bringing automation, all of that together. When you understand that your qualifications teach you that underpinning knowledge, you can then ship it or pivot it or sell it as different things in different shapes and forms based on what the market needs from you. So I'm running around. I have accountancy a basic degree. I have a master's in organizational psychology. I have ACCA. So I'm like running around. Oh, I know how to run business, blah, blah, blah. And then a classic example is this NGO that reached out to me during COVID. So it was more off the bat of COVID where they were like, oh, we'd really like you to help us because we want to look at our programs and we want to figure out, we do good things. I really can't get into details probably because I'm probably not supposed to, but the NGO, any NGO, it does impact work, right? So it either gives out food or it gives out clothes or it gives out furniture. For me, it doesn't matter because as an accountant, what do? Fundamentally, I make business better, right? So they're, giving food and I'm like, oh wait, we can actually give out more food. And they're like, how? Why? Because we can tweak the structures in the organization to be able to get more bang for your buck, enhance value, maximize efficiency. Why am I using these catchwords? Because that's fundamentally as an accountant you do. So what I'm trying to tell you is as an accountant, your education is broad, is bright, is awesome, is transdisciplinary. Take that and apply to whatever conundrum you have. So for me, my example, the most recent example, every 7 years, I pivot into a different industry because I like to get different multidisciplinary skills. But this is the most classic example where they were giving out food or whatever they were doing. And I'm like, wait, we could actually do more bang for your buck. And they're like, oh, no, money is a bad thing. We don't talk about money. Well, do you like to give more rice packets? Because that's cool. And they're like, oh, yes, you want to help people. I'm like, so I'm going to help you help more people. That's what accountancy is about. Yeah. So to answer your question, that was one example. You could apply to anything. The music industry, we just covered it, how Akindo is now running a big, huge American record company because he used the underpinnings of his financial risk management into applying in his role. However, I want to caution you as a graduate, I can say this and I can go off and then tomorrow you could end up screwing up your career. As a young graduate, it's always harder to break in. Yep, it's always harder to break in also in a highly competitive world. I'm not gonna say, oh, you're okay, you're young, you're stupid, as in as in we had it worse, you're having it less worse. No, the problems you face today as young professionals is completely true, honest, and you're going through enormous difficulty, and I recognize that, and I appreciate that. What you can do as a young accountant or a young professional is build on this, be strategic about it. So don't like slash and burn, don't just jump into some other sector. Build on the strengths that you have. So sit down with yourself and think, what am I really good at? I'm doing accountancy. Again, we're getting wrapped up in qualifications. But fundamentally, what are you good at? Are you managing money? Are you good at social media? Are you good at understanding, people? Are you a big picture person or are you a narrow person? There's nothing wrong with narrow also, because you can be a very technical person.
Yeah.
And technical people sometimes get paid better than generalists. So sit down and think about what are the key strengths. And this is what you call strength-based or competence-based or capabilities-led approach. It comes from this positive psychology ideology, where you look at your strengths and then you're like, so then if these are my building blocks for my strengths, that becomes little positive core of who you are. And then you then look at what are the opportunities that I can draw in or use my skill sets for the different opportunities. So when you're a young accountant, I know it's easier to join a big four. I know it's easier to join an accounting firm. That's, if you need to do that, that's fine as well, because what you're doing is then you're building layer by layer by layer. Your career is built through tiny micro layers. It's not at 25, I'm going to be the CEO of a company, or I'm going to be, I'm going to run JKH. It's a good idea. I'd love to see all of you run JKH at some point. Akindu might, we never know. But it's about those microcosms of little changes. And in those changes, you're looking at your strengths. What can I do? Then you're looking at opportunities. Then you're connecting with the right people to then climb. And again, I'm not climbing like this. I'm climbing like this. Why? Because I'm meeting different people and linking the dots to then grow outside of your base. So to go back to your question, Akindu, if you have to do an audit firm for 2 years to get your internship and you have to do that, that's fine. But if you're doing it just because society tells you, you could feel like you're in disconnect with yourself. And if your skills are not aligned, it could be a disaster. So always build it from your skills, but augment, climb strategically and connect with the people you want to go to. So if Akindu wants to get in the music industry, is he going to be getting to know engineers? Maybe not, because he'll probably be strategic about who he meets, because he wants to sit in the risk management field in the music industry. And so therefore he's going to be strategic about his reach.
Definitely. Mariam, I would like to add a little to this question. You said that, as young undergraduates ourselves, especially with the COVID pandemic going on, we are facing a lot of challenges, right? And not everyone has that resilience to face the challenges and, capitalize on the opportunities that come our way. Because the way I see it, even though, a pandemic is negative in a lot of people's minds, but it did give a lot of rise to, online businesses. So it did give opportunities in one way. How do you capitalize on those opportunities, but also how do you face the challenges and build that resilience in your personality?
I agree with you, Akindu, that sometimes on some level it's personality. Some people are just, how it is, like sometimes you're like tired and people are like, yeah, let's go party. Resilience is a bit like that. Like you've done Monday to Friday studying, working, and then you're like, oh, I'm so tired. And people are like, yay. It's about sometimes our energy, our tenacity, our personality. Sometimes. Because ultimately, in our hands, we have the faith and the power to change our destiny. And I'm not saying that, and I'm saying that lightly, because you have the opportunity to change your destiny, but if you don't change it, that's fine as well. So what I'm trying to say is your mental health and capacity is paramount, is fundamentally important. So even if the pandemic comes and think about it like, the pandemic is coming like a hurricane and crashes through your house. Remember the foundation we were building? It crashes through your house and passes by, and you're left with a broken house. It's still okay. If you couldn't do anything for it and you were extremely distraught and you were going through a very tough time in your life, you don't have to succeed. You don't have to take on all these pressures that we tell ourselves, our parents tell ourselves, our society says, oh, you must do this, you must do this. Well, who cares? If you're happy as a person, just, let them be. Because then when your house is broken and it's gone and people have stopped talking about you and they've gone off, then you can slowly build your house little by little by little. Remember why? Your foundation is strong because you have your paper qualification that you never lost, right?
Yeah.
You have your personality, your soul, not your, you could be depressed, you could be downtrodden, that's still fine because you're still existing. Every day you're breathing, you're succeeding, and you can build that house. So that's if you don't capitalize on a COVID or any pandemic, still okay. Don't worry about it. Fundamentally, your own mental health, your capacity to keep fighting is important, because Rome was not built in a day. You can't build your entire career in just, a year or two. You can't be me when, try to finish ACCA by 20. Take your time with things, enjoy life. But to go back to Akindu's question around how do you capitalize on opportunities, sometimes you're born with resilience and agility. Sometimes you have to build it along the way. And I think fundamentally in terms of coping mechanisms, if you're looking at that, when something goes wrong or when something goes, completely not based on your path, breathe, take a step back, think, go back to remember those building blocks. Go back to who you are. What are you fundamentally? What are you good at? What are your strengths? Let the whole world's noise just let you sit in your house and you're like, let all of them stop, like let them keep talking. Close yourself off in the world and think about what are you good at? What are your challenges? What is your strengths? Plant your feet firmly on the ground and say, this is who I am. Now what's out there? And then the moment you look outside the window, you see COVID, blah, blah, blah. And then you suddenly see, oh, well, Kiehl's is opening up an online store. Oh, they're going significantly wrong. They're messing it up. Ha, 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 ha. But, oh, they're messing it up. Maybe I could do an e-commerce delivery company. And then almost immediately you're like, how can I do it? Should I set up a big e-commerce delivery and get, 1.5 million seed capital? No, I'll just deliver to my neighbors. What is that? That's e-commerce delivery as well. So you start doing a little, and then suddenly you're delivering to your road, then you're delivering into your suburb, and then suddenly you're delivering to a part of Colombo. And how did that happen? Because you planted your feet firmly on the ground, and you looked at what are the different avenues that you could tap into? What are the different things that you could tap into? So when anything, it could mean a pandemic, so big problems, or it could mean your boss yelled at you, or it could mean you got retrenched. And I know in Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka is quite a very globalized city. It's a very country. It's very, very international. We do have quite a lot of redundancies in Sri Lanka. So even if you get redundant and you've lost the job you loved, again, go back home, put your feet firmly on the ground and think, what am I good at? What do I stand for? And then when you're ready to approach the world, you look at then the opportunities, the little whispers of opportunities that you see that are hidden in all the darkness and the negativity. Why is it dark and negative? Because people like it to be dark and negative so that they can throw all the negativity to you. But within that are the layers of secret opportunities or the people that have or hold those opportunities therein, which is why the diversity of your network base is fundamentally important as well. So number one, what do we talk about? Planting your feet on the firmly, breathing, taking a step back, looking at your strengths, also tapping into your network, but your network should be diverse. Because if I was an accountant, I worked in a big four, all my friends were big four, everybody's big, one big party, suddenly we all lose our jobs. When I call my networks, do you have an opportunity? Oh, I also lost my job, man. So we've all lost our jobs. That is why diversity of who you know is fundamentally important. So you know your audit mates and your friends, but also know people from the cricket club, your cricket team, your school team, all of that. So that way you tap into different resources or diversity of individuals, thereby you're able to see those opportunities, but also other people have opportunities in their space that they have maxed out their contacts with. And so you have skills here. So it's about the marriage of opportunities that you don't see otherwise in a pandemic or any crisis that you are then able to leverage. But fundamentally, what's the point in all of these opportunities if you're a mess internally and you're like, oh, I lost my job? So that is why you go through that internal introspection period to prepare yourself to capitalize on or harness the opportunities that are ready, but only when you are ready. Take as much time as you need.
So the main thing is, as long as you're alive and breathing and you look for opportunities daily and just relax sometimes and just take it slow when it needs to be done, you'll be fine, right?
Yes. What do you do though? What do you do, Akindu, when things go wrong?
To be honest with you, I'm a bit of a procrastinator myself, and I get stressed with things. But as you said, if things go wrong, I just assess myself. Sometimes, with guitar and vocals and stuff, I feel like, okay, I've hit a ceiling, I'm not improving, and I get frustrated with myself. And when that happens, I just take a break from it and just assess myself and see what I can do to improve. And just plan it slowly and take one day at a time.
Do you use music to relax yourself as well, Akindu?
Sometimes, but it's more for lifestyle for me. Music is there with everything I do almost. I don't listen to music and stuff when I'm studying because it distracts me. But other than that, it's almost always around.
That's incredible. Yeah. Do you feel that having a good support network as well is important, because I never covered that off, but friends, family, all of that?
Definitely, Miss. Like, I feel like even with music, like I know many artists and people in the industry, and they are really helpful, and I think that's important. But also, our lecturers at NSBM, my friends, like even though they're not related to music, as you said, it's diversified that way, right? It's always good to have a backup plan with anything in life.
Yeah. I
Uh,
agree.
Yeah, Mariam, to wrap things up, we've come to like the end of the webinar, unfortunately, and it's really sad. But to wrap things up, I would like to ask a question from the audience. Being a CEO, a consultant, a speaker, and even a lecturer, how do you manage your time in order to achieve your goals and objectives, considering the amount of responsibilities you have? I'm sure you have your own personal responsibilities as well. So how do you manage your time with all that's going on in your life? This will be a very important to me as well.
It's a very important question. I know. I think, to be honest, and I think I'm a big believer in being genuine and being honest with yourself and being honest with the people around you. I do struggle with that. I feel like that is a personal journey that I am currently working on fundamentally. And I'll tell you the reason why it is a bit of a challenge is because I've seen this a lot with Sri Lankans as well. We give our all, we give 100%, we give our full self to whatever we do. And so we give everything. We will die for it, whatever that it is. So when you do different things, so say you work for an audit firm, you work for, you play your music, you are your mom to your kids, or you're a daughter to your dad and your mom, you give 100% to it. And so what happens is your passion, your life, your breathing, your ecosystem, you will always put yourself second for that fulfillment of that role. And I feel like that is both a genetic thing that comes from our people that are so amazing, but also our own personal trait and upbringing. Yeah. However, what then happens is you then lose sight of who you are as a person. You overcompromise. So I think it's about ring fencing and having barriers in terms of the extent to which you extend yourself. I'm going to repeat that, the extent to which you extend yourself. So identifying, always knowing, oh, you're going too much. And I don't mean too much as in don't be nice, don't be good, but I'm saying no when you're losing yourself in the process, and always draw yourself back and drive, have clear structures around what you do. So I could tell you, timekeeping, record sheets, having an agenda saying, 3 to 5, I'm going to do this, 5 to 7, I'm going to do this. Those are the structures in place. But all of our conversation today, Akindu, has always been conceptual, strategic tools that you could use that, it's not like tick boxes, but on a philosophy, how do you approach life? So it is about knowing when you're giving yourself to something, but then knowing when to realize that, and then start drawing yourself back to know that you cannot be everything to everybody. You need to be able to be sufficiently there for the resources that you have. So fundamentally knowing yourself, then also prioritizing what's important to you. And I also know that in high context cultures like Sri Lanka, where we have a lot of community, we do give ourselves too much. So therefore knowing who your tribe is and prioritizing who your tribe is, and most importantly, your tribe will change in life. So the tribe you had in school or primary school before grade 5 scholarship, then when you get into high school will change. And then when you get into, university, it'll change. And then going into work, it'll change. So you will carry a few people along the way, but you will lose a few people, and that's fine as well. So it is about prioritizing what's important to your life. And I think the fourth thing is about knowing when you're overstaying your welcome. And I think that's one thing that I've had to learn the hard way. And I think my husband keeps saying this to me is, and I'll give you an example, a simple example. When you're at a party or an event, a work event, for example, you always want to have the last say, be there for the last bit. Sometimes when you overstay your welcome, you could damage some of your relationships. So therefore, it's about knowing when to cut it off and be firm and assertive about cutting it off, and then moving on to build on some of the other things. So it's about knowing structure, timekeeping, understanding when you're giving yourself entirely, drawing back, prioritizing who your tribe or your purpose is at the time, but also not overstaying your welcome like I'm doing now with you. So I am so sorry for overrunning this session. So yeah.
That's all right, Mariam. Well, to wrap things up, well, it's sad to say that we've now come to the end of our webinar. I'm sure everyone in the audience, including myself, honestly, I learned a lot from today's session. I mean, we discussed many things, but we also touched on the philosophical, the life aspect of it. And I think that was very, very valuable to all of us, about being flexible, having your network right, being, having a network right and being flexible. And of course, having a clear idea of how you're going to face every day. And when things go wrong, just taking a step back, relaxing, and assessing yourself and going ahead with life and the opportunities that come your way. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mariam Riza for her time and for sharing her expertise with us. It was truly an honor to have you with us here today. I would also like to thank the head of the accounting department, Ms. Maitri Vidanakari Karanage, the mistress in charge of the Student Circle of Accounting and Finance, Ms. Dilini Disanaikar, senior lecturer, Ms. Samadhi Virratna, and all other lecturers of the department for their guidance. And last but not least, I would like to thank our lovely audience for staying with us till the very end and making this webinar a success. Stay tuned with SCAF, the Department of Accounting and Finance, for more insightful programs. Thank you.
I can do one more thing to add. It's Ms. Samadhi here. Mariam, after the session, I actually could not wait without giving you a proper thank again for accepting this humble invitation. That is a really wonderful session, Mariam, and the way you speak to our students, I believe you was able to directly talk to our students right into their mind. And all the participants who were there from the beginning to 70 plus, and we had number of students coming in from FB and YouTube. Everyone, I believe everyone has got the got something new within this short period of time. And thank you very much. It's all because of you. And we'll hope to work with you again in the future. Thank you very much again, Mariam. Thank you for the humble acceptance.
Thank you, Samadhi. I want to say to everybody, when somebody started speaking to me initially, she started organizing all of that as well. We sort of hit it off because she had the same, all of your lecturers, I feel, and also Samadhi in particular, has this spark that, sometimes you get it, and Samadhi, you've got it. Like, you've got what you like, you're across everything. So really appreciate working with you, but also I suspect your team. But also I want to say one last thing. This event, I've done a lot of this in my life, but I think I had a lot of fun because of you, Akindo, and the way you engaged and interacted. And I see a really bright future for you, but more importantly, just be awesome, because you're fantastic. So yeah.
Thank you, Mariam.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Cool. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Mariam.
Bye.